Morning, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, back down here at the Pathfinder Outdoor Classroom. And I've been thinking about something for a while now and kind of switching things in and out and doing things a little bit different with my kits and things like that. And I really want to kind of ask myself, as much as questioning the community in general, I'm questioning my own mentality in some ways. And I'm wondering, the question and the title to this video is, do survivalists have it wrong? And, as we grow older and as we learn more things and as we have more experience, and we spend more time in the woods, we spend more time camping and hiking and things like that, we learn things continuously. And one of the things that I kind of question in myself and my own mentality is, I've always said that if 2/3 of my pack weight were sleep gear, it enables me to get a good night's sleep, that's optimum for me. I don't care if 2/3 of the weight of my pack gives me a good night's sleep. So think about that caveat of things to begin with. And then let's talk about the fact that, people on the internet, and I'm not excluding myself from this, have made multiple videos of packing packs and emergency kits, and this is my survival pack, and this is that and the other thing. And what seems to be the common theme, and it has been for me for a long time, is we tend to skimp on that sleeping part, and we tend to have a lot of other peripheral items in our kit for an emergency. And when I say skimp on the sleeping part, I'm not talking about we don't have what we need. In an emergency kit, typically what we teach in the basic class is you have trash bags that you can make something to sleep on if you need to by making a browse bed. You have something that you can sleep inside of, whether that is a whoopee, whether that is a swagman roll, or whether that's some other kind of bedroll type configuration. And you have something that you can sleep under. You have a tarp that you can set up and get yourself out of the elements immediately if you need to. So you have a basic sleep system. However, once you put all this other peripheral gear into the pack, you still generally end up with a pack that weighs over 25 pounds. I've seen videos of people doing exactly that with large scale packs that appear to be in the video full of stuff, but yet they're sleeping with minimal gear. And I question that in myself as well sometimes, because I think when I'm camping, I'm generally carrying a hammock, underquilt, overquilt possibly. If I'm sleeping on the ground, I've got some kind of a Tyvek sheet, some kind of a blow-up pad, and then again, depending on the season, could be a whoopee, could be some type of a lightweight sleeping bag, could be an overquilt, like a down overquilt, which weighs next to nothing. So I could actually put this gear into my kit that weighs next to nothing. I mean, even if I was going extreme and going something like this Exped 7 for a sleeping pad and a sheet of Tyvek, I'm still under 3 pounds probably for this and the sheet of Tyvek. And if I throw a tarp, or even if it's a poncho, I insist on this being my emergency tarp, and it's big enough to cover me, it still can be combined with this, combined with something like a swagman roll, combined with that Tyvek sheet, and give me plenty of cover and options to use this for rain gear as well. But I didn't need to make a mattress. I'm not going to carry some kind of a accordion style mattress most of the time. I do during some of our classes when I can just throw it in the back of the four-wheeler, toss it out there on the ground. I'm only going to get a couple hours sleep anyway between fire watches, things like that. Yeah, I'll do that. But if I'm going to try to sleep 4 or 5 hours of a night, then I usually generally have a pad of some kind. And we've developed a new pad to go with our bedroll system that we made. That's got a rubberized bottom on it. It's very heavy duty. It's got a kind of a plush top on it. It's got a very high R value, about 5, somewhere in that neighborhood. So it's good for colder weather as well. While the Exped 7, the reason it's called the 7 is because it has an R value of 7, which is good for any winter weather here in Eastern Woodlands. But my point to this whole thing is that if I'm going to carry that 25 or 30 pounds of pack weight anyway, why not make sure that I have something very, very comfortable as sleep gear, whether that be my hammock and overquilt combination, or whether that be some kind of a ground pad and swagman roll combination, or down quilt, something like that, because that combination, either one of those, comes in at under 5 pounds. That still leaves me 20 pounds of crap I can put in that pack on top of getting a good night's sleep. But if you've got a large fire kit, you've got a ditty bag, you've got a ropes bag, you've got some kind of a spare water bottle, you got 2 water bottles, things like that. You brought some food. All of those things add up. The contrast I really want to look at with this video and I want to discuss with you guys is Appalachian trail hikers or through hikers in general, or even section hikers for that matter. Most of those guys are what I would call weight weenies. They're really worried about getting that weight down to almost nothing, enough that they cut toothbrushes in half. And I think that's a little bit over the top myself, but I'm not a through hiker. I'm not a section hiker. So I can't attest to that. However, I do know that at a minimum, those guys are spending 3 days on the trail. Yes, every 3 to 5 days they can hit a town most of the time, except for certain sections of the trail that may be a little bit longer. But when you look at that survival scenario, we're only talking 3 days to 5 days most of the time at the most. So if this minimal kit and this ultralight stuff and these simple sleep pads and simple overquilts and simple things like that, simple tarps or simple tents, Dyneema and things like that are able to last them for 3 days at a time, or even a complete hike of the Appalachian Trail without tearing them up. Now, granted, they're not busting brush, but in that sense, I would say that what you put that equipment in is what really counts. The backpack is what really counts. So if the backpack weighs 2 or 3 pounds because it's 500 denier, or it's a military style backpack instead of something that's made out of Dyneema, like an ultralight backpack, then at least you've protected that stuff. And then it comes down to campsite selection. Because if you're worried about poking a hole in an air mattress, you're not doing a very good job of cleaning out the area that you're sleeping in to begin with. And if you've got that Tyvek on the bottom, you're probably going to have that air mattress fairly well protected. And as long as it goes back in the bag, back in the backpack before you march off, you've got very little chance of poking a hole in it without doing something silly to it while you're inflating it or while you're moving it around, brushing it up against something. You're pretty safe. And again, we're talking 3 days to 5 days for an emergency scenario. So sometimes I question myself and I question the survival community in what we put our credence in as far as survival gear. Because to me, as long as it will last 3 to 5 days, it should be good enough for a survival kit. And something like an inflatable mattress that's good quality, a good brand, Exped, Nemo, Thermarest, something like that, Big Agnes, those things are going to be long lasting. I did a poll on the Appalachian Trail Hikers page on Facebook to see what pads people were using and how well they lasted. And I had guys tell me they did the entire Appalachian Trail with a blow-up mattress, and they've done it multiple times, or they've had it for multiple years, and it has lasted them all of that time. So I would say that things are a little heavier duty than we think they are sometimes, or than we envision them to be. And I also think that we overthink things a lot of times when we're building our kits. And that's kind of what I wanted to discuss today, because I think that it's pretty easy to get down to a survival kit, if that's what you want to call it, that will weigh under 30 pounds, even with a heavy duty backpack under 30 pounds, and have everything you need, including a fire kit, including a ropes bag, including a compass, including a map, including an extra water bottle. And I'm talking dry weight without food and water, 25 pounds, right? I think you could easily get away with that and have the sleep gear that's going to give you a great night's sleep. Not having to improvise off the landscape, not having to find a certain piece of terrain to sleep in, not having to find a necessarily protected area, because unless you're in a very high wind scenario and you can't get out of it, there's no possible way to get out of it, then you can still use this gear. And even then, if you have to find some terrain feature, you still have a Tyvek pad, you still have an air mattress, you still have a whoopee, or you have a sleeping bag or an overquilt. So you still have the stuff to get a great night's sleep, even in that terrain feature that you had to find, or an area that's lower than the higher area the wind is at, to get out of that wind and weather, and you have more protection and you'll give yourself a better night's sleep. And so really, this video is more about sleep systems and sleep gear than it is about the totality of a survival kit. But the understanding that I want you to get across is that sometimes I think we overthink survival in that we only want this stuff to be the bare minimum, when even the bare minimum weighs. It has weight to it. Now, is it as multifunctional? A trash bag is very, very multifunctional. A space blanket that is orange is very, very multifunctional. And there's nothing wrong with carrying those things if that's what you want to carry. But additional weight like a sleep pad is not going to add much to your backpack. And you could probably find other peripheral gear that you could drop if you're trying to stay at a certain weight. So you are going to give up some multifunctionality with that. But at the same time, you're not taking a piece of gear. And I'll give you an example. And this is really not an example of anybody's particular video because I've done it myself. I've taught it myself here at the school. But if I have a poncho that I'm saying, oh, this thing's multifunctional because it's rain gear, I can stuff it for a mattress on the ground. If I take that poncho and stuff it with debris and I lay on top of it and I'm rolling around on the thing, what's the chance of getting a hole in that poncho? Pretty good. Now it's not waterproof anymore. Now it's not doing its main job anymore because I used it multifunctionally for something else and I damaged it. Whereas if I damage a sleep pad, that was its main goal, was getting me off the ground. I can use it to sit on or whatever I want to do around camp and keep my body off the ground and help me for battle conduction if I'm just sitting and resting even. But at the same time, if it gets destroyed, it destroys that one piece of gear. And I still have other things like the poncho I can use, but I don't have to use those pieces of kit multifunctionally and take a chance on destroying them if I have the right gear with me to begin with that didn't add much weight to my pack, if any. And as far as a tarp goes, yes, if you're going to carry the poncho for a tarp and you carry a space blanket, there's nothing wrong with that because then you at least have some type of large signal panel and the space blanket doesn't weigh that much. I think what we end up doing is we sacrifice good sleep systems to add weight other places where we should have just bit the bullet, added that sleep gear and said, okay, this is 7 pounds. Now everything else is going to have to weigh, 24, 25 pounds or less because this is what I want to stay to. Because like I said, if 2/3 of the weight of my pack is sleep gear, I'm okay with that. And I would include that in a survival pack as well. But if you're only talking about 7 pounds out of 30, you're talking way less than 2/3 for a great night's sleep. That's kind of what I wanted to get to, and that was the point I was trying to make. And again, I'm not questioning any particular person on the internet that's done videos of this kind of stuff. I'm questioning myself as well, because these are the things that I talk about as well in classes. And building a sleep system within a survival kit, I talk about this stuff as well all the time. Now, yes, I sleep in bedrolls, I sleep in things like that, but hammocks are something I use a lot. Mattresses on the ground are something I use a lot. So why wouldn't I just use them all the time? Because most of the time, if I'm going to carry a backpack, again, I might as well have that stuff. Now, if I'm going to cut myself down to the weight of something like a butt pack for a day hike, then you're talking about a different ball game altogether for survival kit. But that's not what I see most people doing. And if you're going to teach someone to carry a survival kit, I would say make sure it's a kit that's going to help you survive comfortably, not just get you through a night as rough as it may be, or 2 or 3 or 4. Give students, give new people to this craft a way to be comfortable at night. And if they've got to carry 25 or 30 pounds to do it, so what, right? So what? Because you can do it for a lot less. You look at Appalachian thru hikers, most of those guys are carrying less than 25 pounds of weight total. And they sleep fine every night through section hikes, through hikes, all of that stuff. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot to be learned from that. Understanding that they do get to go off trail, but we're talking 3 to 5 days. Understanding that they can resupply, but again, we're talking 3 to 5 days. So go back to that and think about this survival scenario is usually 3 to 5 days before we can either get help or self-navigate to rescue. And so how does that not apply? Other than the fact that the terrain may be rougher, the trail may not be as pronounced, so you may need something to protect that gear, like a heavy-duty backpack, which may add some weight to the kit. But everything else within the kit doesn't have to be that much different, albeit you may want a metal water bottle instead of some plastic water bottle. You may want a full toothbrush instead of a half of one. You may want an extra pot of some kind instead of just carrying one thing, but you can still get that kit down very light by kind of looking at those things and still have everything you need for survival and everything that you need to get a good night's sleep. And that was really the whole point of this video. Guys, I appreciate for kind of the talking head portions of this video. And I wanted to show you a few things on the table and things like that, but it really wasn't necessary. We talked about the air mattress, we talked about the poncho. You can get Dyneema tarps, things like that weigh way less than any of this stuff. So you can get ultralight gear to put in a heavy duty backpack and it will get you through 3 days pretty easy. as long as you're not misusing it and you use proper campsite selection. Guys, I appreciate you joining me for this quick video. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters and the Pathfinder School. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I appreciate everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.